Hello, testing.
Members and staff, please take your seat. The meeting is about to start. The Secretariat has issued a notice to say that the House Committee meeting will follow straight after the Legislative Council meeting. And a notice just been issued also to say that this is the time to start the meeting, and we've actually 5 minutes past the scheduled time. And so we have got a quorum, and it's time to start the meeting. Now, I am the member of the high seniority, so according to the rules of procedure, I am to preside over this meeting. I need to read out first of all this. Yes. We will now proceed to the election of the chairman of the House Committee for the session 2016 to 17. In accordance with Rule of Procedure, Rule 1 of the Rules of Procedure, in accordance with the ruling of the Secretary General, members who have not taken their oaths in accordance with the law may not take part in meeting or in vote. Mr. Edward Yiu, Ms. Yao Wai-ching, and Mr. Sixtus Leung have not taken their oaths in compliance with the rules, so they may not attend the meeting, and they will not be given ballot papers for the election of the chairman and deputy chairman of the House Committee. House Rule 20 and Schedule 4, we have the procedure for election. I will now invite nominations for the chairmanship of the House Committee. We need a member to make a nomination, and this has to be seconded by another member. The nominated member must also accept the nomination before the nomination is valid. So members who would like to make a nomination, please? Mr. Jeffrey Lam. I nominate Ms. Dari Lee. Okay, Ms. Dari Lee. Any seconder? Mrs. Regina Yip seconds. Ms. Dari Lee, do you accept the nomination? Yes, I do. Okay, so Ms. Dari Lee accepts the nomination. Mr. Alvin Young. I nominate Mr. Dennis Kwok. Any seconder? Mr. Charles Mok seconds the nomination. Mr. Dennis Kwok, I accept the nomination. Okay, fine. Any other nominations, please? No? So the nomination is closed. In the past, members have asked the two nominees to say something to members, but I'm not able to allow too much time for that. If members wish to do that, I'll allow it. Otherwise, we could proceed straight to the vote. Ms. Tania Chan. Yes, I would like to make that request. Please make the arrangement. Okay. Let me first get an indication how many members wish to ask questions, and then I will see how much time we have. Please raise your hand. Let me jot down all the names, because otherwise I won't be able to assess how much time we need. The clerk said you can just press the request to speak button now. Please press the request to speak button now, and then I'll see how many members ask questions, make the request, and then I will allow the two nominees to make some brief remarks and also answer short questions. Have you pressed the button? I'll count up to 5, okay? It's easy to... I'll count up to 5 and then we stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see 8 members have pressed the button. Therefore, I will allow the 2 candidates 1 minute each, and then for the 8 members, they will also have 1 minute each. The candidates will then have 1 minute to reply. So that means 2 minutes plus 8 minutes times 2. Sorry, yes, you're right. If both candidates choose to reply, then it's 8 minutes times 3 plus 2 minutes, and that will end the question and answer session. Now, before I ask the candidates to speak, may I remind you, in accordance with past practice of the House Committee, the Secretariat will provide a verbatim record of the question and answer session, so you can expect a verbatim report. So, okay, maybe I should invite the 2 candidates to come over here. If you don't mind, please come over here. Ms. Dari Lee, please, and Mr. Dennis Kwok.
But in accordance with the order of nomination, I will ask Ms. Dari Lee to give a 1-minute introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. The House Committee is an important committee of the Legislative Council. It will make preparation for the Council meeting for the next week, and in relation to receipt of bills proposals from the government, it will decide whether to set up Bills Committee, and it will also give opportunities for members to ask urgent questions and exercise powers to conduct a special business. This is the 3rd time when I have entered the LegCo. First time it was Kowloon West, and then the past 2 times through the Super District Council seats. And I have been the chairman of Bills Committee and also panel committees. And I have abided by all the rules and procedures and made sure that meetings were conducted smoothly. If I have the pleasure to be elected, I will impartially implement the rules of procedure so the members will have opportunities to ask questions and to ensure that meetings are effectively conducted. And I will also clearly reflect your voice to the CS4A, and I will also impartially implement the rules of procedure. Thank you. I will give 1 minute 13 seconds to Mr. Dennis Kwok. Mr. Kwok. Members and Hong Kongers, good afternoon. The most important duty of the House Committee is to comprehensively and accurately reflect members' wishes in relation to policies and bills to the government. In the past legislative term, as you can see, in the last 2 years, the pro-establishments have taken all the chairman and deputy chairmanship of the House Committee, and that is one of the reasons why there was a worsening relationship between the executive and the legislature, because the majority of the democratic camp cannot effectively and directly reflect their wishes and their demand to the executive. That is a problem. If you want to restore the reputation of the Legislative Council, if you really want to restore confidence in Hong Kong people of the Legislative Council, please make sure you understand the importance and the functions of the chairman and the deputy chairmanship, the chairmanship and deputy chairmanship of the House Committee. If there are controversial issues, there should be ways given to members to resolve these issues. You don't have to worry. There are 8 questions asked. You will have 1 minute each. I'll read out the order. Mr. Ray Chan, please ask your question. Thank you. A lot of members of the public know that you will have to conform to Article 71 of the Basic Law in order to be the chairman of the House Committee. On top of that, you will have to be at least 40 years old and permanently resident of Hong Kong for over 20 years. As you know that when Andrew Leung was the chairman of the House Committee, he actually had citizenship of the UK. That's why there is going to be a judicial review. So do you think that you have conformed the requirements under Basic Law Article 73? And there is a chance for the chairman of the House Committee to take the chair of the council. Well, there are no laws saying that principal officials should not have overseas citizenship. However, in order to be fair, they have given that up. So what do you say? This time, Mr. Dennis Kwok first. Thank you. Under Article 71, I fully understand the requirement. That is under paragraph 2 of Article 71. I know that there is a judicial review going on. So, we have to fully understand the requirement of the House Committee Chairman and Deputy Chairman of the requirement under Basic Law. If the court decision is that the chairman and deputy chairman of the House Committee will have to conform to these requirements, then I will resign if I am elected. And I know that people are very sensitive towards this issue, and that is perfectly reasonable and understandable. 3 years ago, I gave up my citizenship of Canada. This is a certificate of renunciation of Canadian citizenship. This is the original. I only have this one. I now hand this to the secretary or the clerk. Well, if members would like to see it, feel free to. But I would like to make this point. If there is a chance for the deputy chairman and the chairman to be the president in the council meeting, then they will have to make clear about citizenship. We can't cheat about your age. I'm 38 years old. Everyone knows that, and that should also apply to citizenship. Ms. Dari Lee. Thank you. Thank you for the question from Mr. Chen. Before I made the decision to run as a candidate of the chairman of the House Committee, I made sure that I meet all the requirements. I was born in Hong Kong. I was educated in Hong Kong. At no time at all that I have citizenship of another country. I am a Chinese citizen. I'm over 40 years old, so I meet the requirement of being a candidate. At the time when the chairman of the House Committee has to preside over a council meeting, that person will have to abide by all the rules and procedures. People have higher expectations of the president and the chairman and deputy chairman of the House Committee. And if I am elected, I fully understand the higher expectation from the public, and I will meet their expectations. Next is Ms. Lau Siu Lai. In today's meeting, from taking of the oath and in the election of the president, the procedure was completely flaunted, and there are 3 members who've been deprived of their seats, and it's worse than the election of the chairman of a student union. So how can it be done in such a coarse and blasé way? And I still don't know how we can continue with meetings of the LegCo because no one has abided by the rules of procedure. It's unreasonable. So will you give back the right of vote casting to the free legislators who've been deprived of such rights? Ms. Lee. As legislators, we know that we have to duly take our oaths. And, members who use this opportunity to state their political stance, if they display something that is not in compliance with the basic law, whether it's in the form of words or whether it is in the form of slogans, then they have not duly taken their oath, and they cannot participate in elections of chairmanship and deputy chairmanship. And I am sure that these members have knowingly done this. We have to abide by the basic law. We are in the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong SAR and we have to respect the basic law. So I hope members who have not duly taken their oath will do so afterwards in accordance with the law. We have to work together for the coming 4 years. I hope that they will complete duly their oath so that they will meet the expectations of the public and do their work properly. Mr. Kwok, there is one point that Ms. Lee has made correctly. Yes, we have to work together in the coming 4 years. So why can't we respect one another? I don't agree with the decision of the Secretary General because he did not adopt past practices. As you can remember, in the last term, Mr. Wong Yuk-man took the oath and there were problems. He went back to his seat and yet he cast a vote towards the election of president, and he participated in the House Committee and also the Finance Committee. 2 days later, the President issued a letter through the Secretariat to Mr. Wong and told him that there were problems with his oath taking, and he invited him to go back the next Wednesday to do it again. That was the convention. That was a way to respect the right of legislators. We all work very hard here. We all hope to do something here. And the least we can do is to adopt past practices of the LegCo. Mr. Christopher Zhang. Thank you. I had a question with Ms. Starry Lee, but she has introduced herself and she has answered some questions, so I think she has already answered the question I have in my head. But I have one question for Mr. Dennis Kwok. After you have studied overseas and you return to Hong Kong, have you resided in Hong Kong continuously for 20 years? When I studied overseas, I came back to Hong Kong 3 or 4 times every year. And I think under the ongoing immigration policy, I have not permanently left Hong Kong. And I was born in Canada, and when I was 3, the whole family moved back to Hong Kong, so I've lived here for over 20 years. Ms. Lee? Mr. Zhang, I would like to use your time to reply to something what Mr. Dennis Kwok said in relation to the arrangement of oath-taking. We have to respect the convention, but more important is that we have to respect the law. In relation to prospective legislators, they have to take the oath in accordance with the law. Last time, Mr. Raymond Wong, when he took the oath, the Secretary General did not make a decision there and then. But this time, the Secretary General did. He made it very clear that 3 legislators did not complete the oath-taking in accordance with the law. And I know that the Secretary General has given one more chance to these legislators. However, they chose not to take the oath in accordance with the law, and they fully know that there would be a chance for them not to be able to participate in election of chairman and deputy chairman. Next, Ms. Priscilla Leung. I have a question for Mr. Dennis Kwok. Just now you mentioned about the rules of procedure. I know that, as you know, that, for the first rule of the rules of procedure, that is, an oath has to be taken in accordance with the, that has to be made or subscribed in a specific form. Well, in the past, I think that the Secretary General was too loose. That's why some legislators have taken it too far. I'm sure you have. You can remember what happened last time. Members of the public don't want to see the legislature sinking to that level. So they expect the president or the chairman or deputy chairman of the House Committee to do something at the right time. Say, for example, some legislators just swarm to the front. Would you turn the other cheek when legislators flouted the rules of procedure? Your microphone's not switched on. Please start again. Ms. Leung, I hope you will understand. I know that your supporters may have the same view as you do, but there are many other legislators that have been elected from other sectors or points in the spectrum. So you should not just impose the wills of your supporters over ours and ignore the wills of other legislators. I respect the decision of Justice Hartman in 2004 in relation to Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. And this decision was clear, but at the same time we have to respect the convention of the LegCo. How come that Mr. Jesper Zhang, the former president, could make sure that the council meetings could be conducted smoothly because he respected decorum and procedure? I just asked you to implement the rules of procedure. If someone has completely flouted the rules of procedure, would you stop that person and ask them to go back to their seat? If I have to chair a meeting, I would do so in accordance with the established practice of the LegCo. I respect convention. I respect the established practice. I will not let the LegCo and the meeting sink to a low level and to let the decorum disintegrate. Ms. Lee, I'm sure you know who are the people who have completely flouted decorum and propriety, and we understand. That's why we will duly take our oath and will do so in accordance with the law, because that is a cornerstone of a place with the rule of law. I am not happy because some people have distorted the facts and made some allegations about the Secretary General. It was made very clear that if legislators do not take the oath in accordance with the rules and procedures, they should know full well the consequences. And I hope that in the coming 4 years, the legislators will use the opportunity to serve the public. We come from different sectors, we have different supporters, but still, that is not the reason why you can't distort the truth.
Just now, Mr. Dennis Kwok showed us a document he claimed is the original of the renunciation certificate of the Canadian citizenship. Now, in view of the time constraint, if I keep that copy at the antechamber, it may be too much hassle. So I've talked to the clerk, and I propose to put the certificate there. If you wish, you could go and take a look at it. And I'm not going to make copies. That's the original. Please don't tear up the document, okay? You can go and inspect the document if you wish. It's next to the Secretary General. And if you have any questions, you could ask questions if you're already in the queue. We believe in what members say. We often don't need to inspect the document. No, I'm saying, because earlier on, in relation to the questions about Mr. Andrew Leung's case, he produced the document when he's got it. So that's why we're also keeping Mr. Dennis Kwok's document here for your inspection if you wish. Next, Dr. Fernando Cheung. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Starry Lee said something about the judgment of the Secretary General. I questioned that. Now, members have gone through a difficult process. We have received a mandate of the people, and now we're here. And then it's for the Secretariat or the Secretary General to liberally deprive a member of his right. That's serious business, because that member represents the views of some of the people in the community. And the oath-taking procedure today is the same as last time. There were also members last time who chose to include certain content in the oath, and there was not a problem last time. But this time, the Secretary General made a decision not to complete the oath-taking procedure. And that's why for the election of the President, for the election of the House Committee Chairman and Deputy Chairman, and later on the Chairman of the Finance Committee, these members not allowed to vote. Now, that's not acceptable. So as a member, don't you have the duty to fully reflect the views of different sectors to our official? Dr. Cheung, you've made your point clear. We shouldn't just be rushing through things. We shouldn't just finish the meeting in 3 minutes. We should be allowed ample time for members to express their views. Ms. Starry Lee. Thank you, Dr. Cheung. Let me take your second question first. I will pledge to members that I will certainly faithfully convey the views of different parties and factions in this council, especially when I meet with the Chief Secretary for Administration, but also when I meet with other officials. I will still do as I've done, that is to reflect faithfully your views. But I would need to respond to your other point. My observation said that the SG has not indiscriminately or casually deprived members of their right, but rather it's because members chose not to comply with the rules in taking the oath. They know full well what the consequences are. So I don't agree with you that this SG has deliberately or casually deprived members of their right. No, Mr. Dennis Kwok. Now, my greatest reservation about the SG's decision is that because he doesn't follow the oath taken by the members, so he declared the oath invalid. Now, I don't follow that either. On what basis did the SG say that the member did not understand the content of the oath when he took the oath? Because if that's the case, then the most conservative way to go about it is for the president to rule on it. And this president is elected among us. That's what was done last time in the last term. The president decided then that Mr. Raymond Wong's oath was invalid, and that's always been a practice. That's what we've been doing. So that's why I think the SG's decision will be challenged legally. And then Basic Law, Article 79, Paragraph 7, it's stated here clearly that if any member goes against the oath, then we can move a motion to remove that member. It's stated in the Constitution. Ms. Tanya Chen. Thank you. My question is for Ms. Starry Lee. She keeps saying in compliance with the rules or law or whatever. Now, apart from the rules of procedure and the basic law, before you took the oath this morning or before you ran for election for the chairmanship now, did you read the judgment of Justice Hartman, as mentioned by Mr. Dennis Kwok? Yes, I read it. Did you read the full judgment? Yes, I read it, but of course I'm not a legal expert. I read it, but perhaps not the full version. Please come to your question. Well, then why did you say that some members have not said everything? And you also mentioned that they should know the consequence beforehand. Are you referring to the statement issued by the government yesterday, trying to intimidate members or remind them that if they do not follow the wordings of the oath, there's a possibility that the oath would become void and so they cannot vote? Is that the case? Now, we're talking about the chairman of the House Committee who's favoring the government so much. Then in that case, how can this chairperson reflect the views of different parties? And is it possible that this chairman might distort the views of different parties when he or she conveys the views to the government? Ms. Darely. Thank you, Ms. Chen. I always remind myself that if I am to become the chairman of the House Committee, and in that capacity, as I meet with government officials, I must faithfully reflect the views of different parties. I must not include my own subjective views. And you can observe that in the past, I've never used very strong objective terms to comment on issues, so I will try my best to convey views faithfully. As for the wordings of the oath, my understanding is that for all members elect, they all took the oath-taking procedure today seriously. Now, for any member elect to choose how to take the oath, I'm sure they would have thought about it beforehand, and they would be fully aware of the possible consequences. And also, there was a training session for members. The Secretary General made this very clear to them, because I took this very seriously, so I attended that training session too. And the Secretary General did make it very clear that if members did not follow the oath, it's possible that they may not become a member. Well, but Justice Hartman's judgment is said very clearly that you cannot change any single word of the oath for the oath to be valid. But then today the SG made a decision. It's because a member put a banner before her, so he considered that the member did not understand the meaning of the oath. That's why the oath was declared invalid. I think this decision may have no legal ground, but anyway, the member concerned might take out a judicial review, so we'll leave it to the court. But anyway, if you go by our past practices, it's for the president to decide whether an oath is valid or not. And I think that if we do so, then we'll be respecting the tradition of this council, and that's the usual practice of this council. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Kwok. As the chairman of the House Committee, there is a chance that you will become the deputy to the president. And you just tell us your age is 38, but the age of requirement for the presidency is 40 years of age. So how are you going to deal with it? Because you're actually not old enough to become the president. Now, you've put forward your legal viewpoints, but we've got our own viewpoints too. We found that this morning there were a lot of problems with the oath-taking procedure. Now, if a member has not fully complied with the rules in taking the oath, that members should not attend our meeting. That's the ruling. And then just now, in a council meeting, you saw all this happening. People were all charged for the podium. They even tried to snap ballot paper and so on. Now, you are from the legal sector. You should know that if there is any this agreement, we could resolve it through the court, or people can make petitions if they want. So why don't you do it? Because as the chairman, you have the duty to follow the rules in conducting business. Mr. Kwok, well, you don't have to seek my opinion. We are all members, so we can speak on equal terms. For Article 71(2) of the Basic Law, I've already made that point here. I know there is a judicial review case being considered. The court will rule whether the chairman or the deputy chairman of the House Committee needs to comply with Article 71(2) of the Basic Law. If that's the court so rules, then I will immediately resign. That's what I've said. And there must be a reason for what happened. You asked how come members all charged at the president's podium, how come they all left their seat? Why did that happen? Now, last term, there was also a problem with Mr. Raymond Wong's oath, but this did not happen. So in the next 4 years, I think we have to give this enough thought. Why is that in this council people become more radical? Why is there more division? Is because we have not respected the convention of the council. Mr. Ari, for all members of the council, today we had an unhappy experience, but in the next 4 years, we've been asked by the people of Hong Kong to do a proper job in this council. For members who have not yet taken the oath, I hope they will take their oath in accordance with the law. Now, if I should become the chairman of the House Committee, I will continue to work with you, and I will try to forge communication with you. Hopefully, then we could discuss various issues in community and find solutions to these problems. Dr. Kwok Kaki, in the past 4 years, I think we can all see in the House Committee, Mr. Andrew Leung performed poorly. We find that regrettable. Mr. Chen, Albert Chen, couldn't even finish speaking for 30 seconds and he was thrown out. And just hearing Ms. Dara Lee, it causes concern to me. Now, you are the chairman of the pro-establishment camp, that is the DAB, and you've also been an executive councillor. Now, there should be separation of powers among the executive, the legislature, and the court. But just now, we asked you about the Hartmann's judgment, and you said you haven't read it all, and then you've already come to this judgment of your own to say that there's nothing wrong with the SG's decision. But why is there nothing wrong with the SG's ruling? Because we could see, for the 3 members in particular, Mr. Yu, he actually finished the whole oath before he added something to it. So on what basis do you come to this conclusion? Dr. Kwok, I should clarify that I've actually I have read Justice Hartmann's ruling, and I know that we cannot add to or delete from the wordings of the oath. That point is clear. And this morning we all observed how the oath went. I'm not going to add anything to that. As for my political position, I've never tried to hide my political position. But as the chairman of the House Committee, I know very well that I need to conduct House Committee meetings in a fair manner. I have to allow members chances to speak. I must also ensure that the meetings are conducted smoothly. As the deputy to the president, I also pledge that I will exercise implement the rules of procedure impartially and fairly. And as the chairman of the House Committee, if I meet with government officials, I will not just be conveying the position of my party. I will certainly faithfully reflect the views of members. Anything from Mr. Kwok? No. Okay. Now we will proceed to a vote by secret ballot. The two members could now take your seat. Thank you. Can I ask the staff to distribute ballot paper to all members present at the meeting, and also a chop? Now you can see on the screen, candidate number 1, Ms. Sarah Lee, number 2, Mr. Dennis Kwok. Make sure you mark your ballot paper right. But if you have made a mistake, you can indicate and ask for a replacement ballot paper.
係 OK。嗱，當議員呢喺
After members have marked the ballot paper, I will ask again to check that everyone has marked the ballot paper before I declare the voting closed. And at that point, we will no longer distribute ballot paper. The staff of the Secretariat will then collect ballot paper. For all members who've been given ballot paper, you have to place the ballot paper in the ballot box yourself. You can't just ask someone else to do it for you. No. The staff will make sure the member places the ballot paper in the box him or herself. If you have not yet put the ballot paper in the ballot box, please do not leave your seat. Okay, now voting begins. You've all been given ballot paper.
It's by secret ballot, so please do not show your ballot paper to others. Please do not fold your ballot paper, however many times. Let me ask again. Are there any members seated here who has not been given a ballot paper? Please raise your hand. None? Okay. Please take a seat. You do not have a ballot paper. Please give one to the member. After you've been given a ballot paper, please mark the ballot paper as soon as possible. Number 1 is Mr. Lee. Number 2 is Mr. Dennis Kwok. Please, you can see the information on the screen. If members have marked their ballot papers, I now declare that the voting is closed. There won't be any ballot papers distributed. I now ask staff members to collect the ballot papers. Put the ballot papers in the box personally, and do not leave your seat before you do so.
OK， 得 OK。嗱，我稍後咧就
Shortly afterwards, I will ask the two nominated Mr. Jeffrey Lam and Mr. Alvin Young to supervise the counting of votes. Please get ready to come up shortly.
我哋咧就派出咗6。
We have distributed 61 ballot papers.
要啊。好嗱，我邀請呢。
I now ask the two nominated, Mr. Jeffrey Lam and Mr. Alfred Young, to come out to supervise the counting of votes.
佢首先呢就撈亂佢先啊。
The ballot papers will be mixed up first.
好。
Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. 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 Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. 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 Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. 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 Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. You can see the result. Total number of ballot papers or votes, 61. The same number as the ballot papers distributed. Let's count the votes again just to be sure.
OK， 係啦。
It's confirmed upon recounting. That is 38 to 23. Number 1, Starry Lee, 38 votes. Number 2, Mr. Dennis Kwok, 23 votes. I declare that Ms. Starry Lee elected as chairman of the House Committee. Thank you.
呢個咁講。
得拎走。
首先呢，就咁。
First of all, I thank all members for their help in making sure that the election of the chairman of the House Committee a smooth one, and I hope that I have the opportunity to cooperate with you so that we can forge a cooperative relationship in the whole of the Legislative Council. Now, election of the Deputy Chairman. We need one member to make a nomination, which is to be seconded by at least one member for it to be a valid nomination. Mr. Kenneth Kwok. I nominate Mr. Dennis Kwok to be seconded by Mr. James To. Mr. Dennis Kwok, do you accept? Yes. Any other nominations? I'll count to 3. Any other nominations? 1, 2, 3. There is no other nomination. And for that reason, I declare Mr. Dennis Kwok elected members, Deputy Chairman of the House Committee in the coming year, 2016-17. Next House Committee meeting will take place this Friday, the 14th of October at 2:30. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.